In India, recovery teams have now pulled 270 bodies from the wreckage of the plane crash that occurred last Thursday in Amnabad City. Tragedy like this should never be routine, but the more we uncover, the more it begins to look like the system allowed it to happen. One former Boeing engineer stood up and said, "I'm not here because I want to be, I'm here because I have to be. I don't want to see another 787 crash." His warning isn't vague, it's specific, backed by years of ignored data and disturbing patterns. Yet during his testimony, that same engineer was grilled over being investigated for falsifying inspection records. Boeing is already under criminal investigation for the Alaska Airlines mid-flight failure. They've been probed by the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, and the FAA for fraud, for conspiracy, for violating basic aviation protocols. This isn't ancient history, it's happening now. What began as scattered technical incidents, some dismissed, others quietly filed away, has become an undeniable signal. Something is deeply broken inside the production and oversight of Boeing's 787 Dreamliner. And the moment that shifted everything, a catastrophic crash involving Air India's Boeing 787. The wreckage held more than just debris. It revealed something so alarming that engineers were stunned silent, a core safety violation that should never happen. But the worst part? Boeing knew. They knew, and they buried it. This isn't a story about minor glitches or one-off errors. It's a systematic breakdown, technical, cultural, and managerial. And unless something changes, it could put the future of American aviation at risk. Let's begin with a critical system known as the RAT, the Ram Air Turbine. This is a backup device designed to deploy automatically if all other power systems fail mid-flight. It uses airflow to generate just enough power to keep critical systems running. But at Phoenix Sky Harbor during a routine inspection, a parked Boeing 787 deployed its RAT. No power failure, no movement, just a software fault in the central power unit that tricked the aircraft into thinking it had lost all power. Engineers flagged it immediately, but the logs showed this wasn't new. The software glitch had shown up in earlier testing phases, and Boeing knew. They had the data. But instead of issuing a fleet-wide fix or notifying airlines, they chose to keep it quiet. The priority? Avoid public panic, keep the stock stable, protect the brand image. But aircraft don't run on confidence. They run on systems engineered to survive turbulence, pressure, and time. If this RAT activates mid-flight when it shouldn't, it could disrupt autopilot, misroute power, and confuse the aircraft's navigation, all during crucial phases like ascent or descent. That's how a plane goes from stable to emergency mode in seconds. And this wasn't an isolated bug, it was a sign of something deeper. Take the forward pressure bulkhead. It's a structural wall behind the cockpit that seals the aircraft and maintains cabin pressure at cruising altitude. It's essential. If it fails, air escapes rapidly. There's no time to react, no chance for passengers to stay conscious. In Texas, during a 787 inspection, engineers found dozens of misaligned rivets in the bulkhead, some the wrong size, others already corroding. These weren't on the production line, they were in planes that had already flown thousands of passengers. More investigations uncovered similar issues in multiple Dreamliners, especially those built at Boeing's South Carolina facility, an assembly plant known for cutting corners to speed up production. The FAA stepped in. They issued an emergency directive ordering airlines to remove insulation and inspect the forward bulkhead using specialized cameras. No more visual-only checks. And what they found was worse than expected. Cracks, corrosion, debris left behind during manufacturing. In some cases, parts were literally patched in with non-standard methods to make them fit, rather than rebuilt properly. Boeing downplayed it, insisting that no in-flight failures had occurred. But aviation authorities in Europe and Asia pushed back. They warned that even a 1-centimeter defect at 11,000 meters altitude could lead to a cabin pressure failure. At that height, unconsciousness begins in under 20 seconds. And it didn't stop there. After a long-haul flight to Tokyo, engineers discovered wet insulation beneath the 787's mid-cabin floor. Further inspection revealed something worse. Water was leaking into the aircraft's electronics bay, known as the E&E bay, the central hub for power, flight controls, and communications. The source? Poor seals around lavatories and water tanks. The fix Boeing applied wasn't structural, it was temporary patches and routine monitoring. The issue was flagged early in production, but the permanent solution was always coming later. In the meantime, corrosive particles, metal filings, chemicals, residues, were mixing with water and slowly eating into the aircraft's wiring. One airline even found soaked cockpit carpets. Another reported erratic readings from flight sensors, yet the full redesign didn't happen until multiple airlines submitted formal complaints and the FAA escalated the matter. The bulkhead problem resurfaced too. The issue originally flagged in 2021 had supposedly been resolved, but in March 2025, new inspections found it again. More rivets, more corrosion, more structural weaknesses. It became clear the original fix wasn't a fix at all, just a cover-up. This led investigators to former Boeing engineer and whistleblower Sam Saliper. He exposed the so-called shadow factory at the South Carolina plant, a secret workshop where failed fuselage parts were patched and retrofitted, but those parts weren't always reinstalled correctly. Some were crammed into place with excessive force. Others used methods that compromised the plane's ability to handle stress during flight. Even more troubling, Boeing didn't build every part themselves. A contractor in Italy, MPS, supplied substandard metal components used under the cabin floor. These parts were found in nearly 500 Boeing 787s. Inspectors missed it. Boeing missed it. In some cases, both knew but let it slide to avoid costly delays. These aren't ancient errors, they're ongoing. In 2023, a Boeing 787 from Sydney to Santiago suddenly dropped 120 meters in less than 10 seconds. Passengers were injured. The autopilot misread turbulence and incorrectly thought the plane was stalling. There was no alert, no warning, just a plunge. On another domestic flight, a pilot's seat jammed during descent. The co-pilot had to take over at the last second. Why? A worn-out locking pin that was never flagged for maintenance because it wasn't on the checklist. These aren't just technical failures, they're cultural ones. After Boeing merged with McDonnell Douglas in the late 90s, the power shifted from engineers to executives. The focus moved from safety to profits. Warnings were ignored, inspections rushed, and some whistleblowers were fired just for speaking up. By the end of 2024, the damage was visible. Boeing's CEO stepped down, stocks plunged. Airline clients quietly moved new orders to Airbus. The A350, once neck and neck with the Dreamliner, is now seen as the safer, more stable choice. Even the FAA has started pulling back. It's no longer giving Boeing the benefit of the doubt. Independent inspectors are increasing. Airlines across Asia and Europe are hiring third-party auditors to verify safety claims. Because now the problem isn't just physical, it's about trust. The Boeing name once stood for reliability. Today that trust is eroding. And if the cycle isn't broken, the next failure won't be a warning, it'll be a disaster. Presented by UK Logie.